The alarm had not even finished its first cycle when Princess Elira Sen leaned close to my face and laughed. 9 quarts help us, she said, her violet eyes tracing the scar that split my eyebrow and ran down across my cheek. They sent me a soldier who looks like he lost a fight with a docking clamp. Her guards laughed with her. I did not move. Around us, the diplomatic hall of Meridian Station buzzed with quiet conversation, crystal glasses, and the soft hum of translation devices strapped to a dozen different alien wrists. None of it mattered right now, because a warning light had just blinked red on the far wall, and nobody else in that glittering room had noticed it yet. I noticed it. I always notice it. Your Highness, I said, keeping my voice even. We may need to move. She waved a clawed hand at me, dismissive, still smiling at her own joke. Do not change the subject, human. I asked you a question. What happened to your face? Did your own species do this to you? I hear you are a violent breed. Ma'am, the shields. The station lurched. Not hard, not yet. Just a shiver through the deck plating. The kind you feel in your knees before you hear it in your ears. Glasses rattled on silver trays. Somewhere behind me, a servant dropped a tray of drinks, and nobody even looked, because the second lurch came a heartbeat later, and this one knocked 3 nobles clean off their feet. Raiders, I said. Ashen Fleet. They found the summit. Elira's smile vanished. Her guards, 6 of them in dark polished armor, snapped into a circle around her before she could even react. Good instincts, slow reflexes. In open space, slow reflexes get people killed. That is not possible, she said. This station has the strongest shield grid in 3 systems. Had, I said, already moving. Past tense. Everyone down, now, and stay low. I grabbed the nearest table and flipped it, more from muscle memory than thought, and shoved 2 frightened dignitaries behind it, before the third impact hit. This one was not subtle. The far wall of the hall buckled inward, sparks spitting from a ruptured conduit, and the lights dropped to the dim emergency red that I had seen far too many times before. Elira's guards raised their weapons toward the breach, hands shaking just slightly. I noticed that too. I notice everything. It is the only reason I am still breathing after everything I have been through. Listen to me, I said, and something in my voice made even the princess turn her head. I have done this before. If you want to live through the next 10 minutes, you follow me, and you follow me now. Nobody argued this time. Not even her. We moved through a side corridor as the station groaned around us, the low animal sound of metal under stress. Smoke curled along the ceiling vents. I kept my pace steady, not fast enough to panic the group behind me, not slow enough to let the fear catch up to any of us. Elira stayed close to my shoulder, her earlier mockery gone, replaced by something sharper and more useful. Attention. You said you have done this before, she said quietly. 4 years ago. The words came out clipped, automatic, because talking kept my hands from shaking, and my mind from drifting somewhere darker. Outpost Aldern, out past the Corvi line, small relay station. 12 of us stationed there. Nothing important, or so everyone thought, until 40 raider ships found it on a quiet Tuesday. A blast rocked the corridor behind us. I pushed the group forward without breaking stride. What happened? She asked, and this time there was no mockery in her voice at all. We had 2 small transport ships, a comms tower, and absolutely no chance of holding out. I guided them around a corner, checking the hallway ahead before waving them through. The raiders knew it too. They took their time. That is the part people never understand about a real fight. It is not fast. It is long, and slow, and every second stretches out until you think it will never end. Another explosion, closer now. Dust rained from the ceiling. One of the guards stumbled and I caught his arm without thinking. Hauled him upright, kept walking. There was a boy on that outpost, I continued, because talking was steadying something inside my own chest. 17 years old, training officer, first posting away from home. His name was Owen. He froze the moment the first raider ship latched onto our hull. I do not blame him. Everyone freezes the first time. The question is whether someone grabs you before the freeze becomes permanent. We reached a junction, 3 paths. I chose the left one without hesitation, and Elira noticed that too. You know this station, she said. I studied the layout on the shuttle ride over. Old habit. I glanced back at the frightened group behind us, at the princess with her crown slightly crooked, and her eyes wide open now, truly open. Maybe for the first time since she had landed on this station and started making jokes about my face. At Aldern, our launch bay doors jammed. Debris in the rail system, the kind of small failure that becomes enormous the moment your life depends on it. 12 people, 1 working exit, and it did not work. So what did you do? I went outside the hull in an emergency suit. No thruster pack, no support line that would hold under that kind of stress. Just my hands, and 40 meters of exposed hull between me and a manual override switch. I kept my eyes forward, scanning every doorway we passed, every shadow that could hide a threat. The ship was venting air the entire time. I could feel it pulling at me, trying to drag me off into open space. Raider boarding pods were locking onto the hull around me while I worked, close enough that I could see the seals hiss when they connected. Illyra said nothing. Her guards had gone quiet too, listening now instead of watching the corridor, which was actually a problem, and I said so. Eyes forward, I told them, sharper this time. A story never protected anyone. Watching does. They snapped back to attention immediately. Good. Fear makes people obedient, and right now I needed obedience more than I needed anything else. We reached an emergency lift, sealed, red warning lights blinking along its frame. I pressed my palm to the manual override panel beside it, the kind every trained officer learns to operate blind, and the doors groaned open just far enough to squeeze through. Inside, I said, quickly. The group filed in. Illyra went last, deliberately, staying beside me until everyone else was through. Finish it, she said. What happened at that outpost? I want to know. My hands froze to the override cable, I said, holding up my scarred knuckles for her to see clearly in the dim red light. Micro debris tore through my glove before I even reached the switch. I finished the connection with 2 fingers that had already stopped feeling anything at all. 3 crew members made it into that transport before the door sealed behind them. 3, she repeated, out of 12. 3 is not nothing, I said, and for a moment something old and heavy pressed against my chest, something I usually kept locked far away. 3 is 3 people who went home to families who thought they were already gone. I have never once regretted the math, even on the nights it keeps me awake. The lift lurched into motion, carrying us down through the station's spine toward the docking level, where our own transport waited. I kept my hand near the emergency stop control the entire ride, ready to act the moment anything changed. The scar on your neck, Illyra said quietly. Tell me that one too. A Raider boarding party breached the compartment I was standing in, seconds after I sealed that transport hatch. Their close combat blade opened my throat before I even saw the strike coming. I do not remember most of what happened after that. I woke up 9 days later in a medical bay with half my skull rebuilt around new plating, and doctors telling me I was fortunate to be alive at all. And the scar across your face? The relay tower housing collapsed on top of me almost the same moment. I have no memory of that part either. Only the before, and then the after. I looked at her directly now, something steady in my voice despite everything happening around us. The surgeons offered to repair my face completely. I told them not to bother. The plating holding my skull together would have been compromised by more surgery, and honestly, by then, I had stopped caring what my face looked like. I only cared that it was still attached to the rest of me. The lift doors opened onto the docking level, and immediately I understood why the station had gone quiet on this deck. The Raiders had already landed a boarding team here, 3 of them, moving through the corridor ahead with weapons raised, scanning for exactly the kind of frightened diplomats currently standing behind me in a stalled lift. Stay behind me, I said, and this time I did not wait for agreement. I stepped out first, drawing the sidearm from beneath my formal jacket, the one piece of equipment I had insisted on carrying despite the summit's strict no-weapons policy. Nobody had argued with me about it once they learned my service record. I moved along the wall, using the shadows the emergency lighting created, closing the distance before the Raider team even registered my presence. The next few moments moved fast, the way real danger always does despite what people believe from stories. I disabled the first Raider before he could turn, used his own falling weight to knock the second one off balance, and put the third down before either of them managed a single shot in my direction. It was over before Illyra had even finished stepping fully out of the lift. She stood there in the corridor, staring at me with an expression I had not seen on her face once since arriving on this station, something close to respect, mixed with disbelief, mixed with something quieter underneath both of those. You told me a story about slow terror and long seconds, she said. That was neither slow nor long. Both versions are true, I said, holstering my weapon and moving toward our waiting transport at the end of the dock. Sometimes a fight lasts an hour and drags every nerve in your body along with it. Sometimes it lasts 4 seconds and changes absolutely nothing about how much it costs you afterward. We boarded the transport together, her guards following, the frightened dignitaries close behind them. The docking clamps released, and Meridian Station fell away behind us, still burning in 3 places, still fighting off the remainder of the Ashen Fleet Raiders with its own defense systems. Illyra sat across from me in the transport's narrow cabin, silent for a long moment, studying my face again, but differently this time. Not searching for weakness, reading something else entirely. On my homeworld, she said finally, a soldier who returned from battle looking the way you look would be quietly reassigned somewhere nobody important would ever see him. We do not display scars at court. We hide them, the way we hide any evidence that a fight was ever close to being lost. I did not lose, I said. I am sitting right here in front of you. That is exactly my point, she said, and there was no mockery anywhere in her voice now, only something quiet and sincere. You survived something that should have ended you twice over, and instead of hiding what it cost you, you wear it where everyone can see. I mocked you for exactly the wrong reason. I should have been asking how you managed to still be standing at all. You did not know. That is not an excuse a princess is permitted to use, she said, echoing something formal and old, the kind of phrase clearly drilled into her since childhood. I judged you before I understood you. That mistake belongs entirely to me. The transport shuddered gently as it cleared the station's damaged outer ring, engines steadying once we reached open space. Through the small viewport beside her, I watched Meridian Station shrink slowly behind us, smoke trailing from its side like a wound that would take weeks to close. 3 survivors, she said quietly, almost to herself, out of 12, at that outpost 4 years ago. Lena, Owen, and Grace, I said, naming them because they deserved to be named. Because forgetting their names felt like the one thing I refused to let happen to me no matter how many years passed. Lena runs supply logistics now on a colony near the outer rim. Owen finished his training and became an engineer. Builds ships instead of riding inside broken ones. Grace still serves, still tells anyone who will listen that a scarred man dragged her out of a dying station with 2 frozen fingers. And the other 9? I remember every one of their names too, I said. That is the part that never gets easier, no matter how much time passes. You do not get to save everyone, you only get to try, and hope the number of people you bring home outweighs the ones you could not. Illyra was quiet for a long moment, watching me with an expression that had settled somewhere between respect and something gentler. When we return to the 9 courts, she said, I intend to tell them exactly what happened today, not the part where raiders attacked the summit. The part where a scarred human soldier moved through danger like it was something he had already made peace with, and saved every single person standing behind him without a moment of hesitation. You do not need to tell anyone anything, I said. I was only doing my duty. That is precisely why I intend to tell them, she said, and for the first time since she had landed on Meridian Station, she smiled without any trace of mockery in it at all. Duty that costs this much and asks for nothing in return deserves to be spoken about loudly, not hidden quietly the way my people prefer. The transport engines hummed steadily beneath us, carrying us toward the safety of the fleet rendezvous point, away from the burning station and the raiders still being pushed back by its remaining defenses. I looked down at my scarred hands, the ridged skin across my knuckles catching the low cabin light, and thought about Lena, Owen, and Grace, about the 9 names I still carried quietly, about every choice that had led me to this exact moment sitting across from a princess who had started the day mocking my face and ended it understanding exactly what that face had cost. For what it is worth, Illyra said as the fleet rendezvous point came into view through the viewport. I am glad they sent you. So am I said, and meant every word of it.